Hello again. In this clip, we're looking at clause 7.5 of ISO 9001, and we keep in mind that this clause is applicable to all of the management system standards, regardless. So the whole area of documented information and document control has always been a bit of a pain in the ass, particularly since the big shift from the older version to the new version in 2015. Um, Many people would consider that that particular change was a major shift compared to previous changes, particularly the previous immediate one, which was more or less a tweak. That was the 2008 version. So what I'd like to say about this is, this really is dependent on your own needs and the complexity of your processes and so on. Most organizations will get away handsomely with presenting for audit with their document control through OneDrive, SharePoint, and so on, or indeed Google G Suite. So, we have to take this to the degree that we need to for our own purposes, and remember that the autonomy is with the organization. And so long as you can demonstrate to the auditor that it's working for you, how you manage documented information is entirely your own consideration. Okay, so let's go down through the criteria. It's divided up into three subsections, and control of documented information, the third one we look at lastly, that's itself is divided into two subsections. So we'll go through the criteria fairly quickly, okay? The organization's quality management system shall include A, documented information required for this standard, and B, documented information determined by the organization as being necessary for the effectiveness of the management system. So straight away, just nailing that criteria that I've just spoken to. Note, the extent of documented information for the quality management system can differ from one organization to another due to the size of the organization and its type of activities, processes, products, and services, the complexity of the processes and their interaction, the competence of the persons. Bang! That's, when we're with our clients, we have a principle called the cup of tea principle. And that is, if the person, is highly competent in a technical task, well, it's our recommendation that you consider that you need to document information to the extent necessary so that that person with that technical competency, training, experience, and everything else, you don't want, if to them the task is straightforward and the equivalent of making a cup of tea, the last thing you want to be doing is to spelling everything out in exact details. So I'm going to move on from there. I think the criteria on the screen speaks for itself largely. Okay. Creating and updating. Sorry. When creating and updating documented information, the organization shall ensure appropriate A, identification and description, format, and review and approval for suitability and adequacy. Just deal with the last one first. Review and approval is dealt with through the internal audit program, and all documentation would come under review as each process and system is being audited. So this is the bit where, when you're auditing a process, we ask you to, in the scope page, document the supporting documentation that's informing the audit. So the opening meeting of the audit would consider the procedural information that's provided in support of the operation. I think with regard to identification, description, format, really, we've kind of got a very high level approach to document control, and we use descriptive terms. We're not into using coding, very just a descriptive term, like, so the quality management policy, that's the name of it. I think quality management policy statement. There's no need for precursor or kind of a prefix. And I think the important thing there is that, there's only one document of that name. That's critical. And the other thing is internally in the document, in the footer, you've got the issue number and the issue date. And the control of the documentation is documented through the car register. So anytime there's a need for a change or an updating of the document, that's how we do it, okay? 753, control of documented information. I'll just scroll up a little here. Okay, so documented information required by the quality management system and by this international standard shall be controlled to ensure. Oh, by the way, just note the way they make a difference between the quality management system and the standard. And by the way, also plant information security, health and safety, and so on for the word quality in this regard. So it shall ensure, A, it is available and suitable for use where and when it was needed, and B, it is adequately protected from loss of confidentiality, improper use, or loss of integrity. So consider from information security, you've got confidentiality, integrity, and availability. This is covering exactly the same criteria. So really and truly, you know, if you've got all of your processes documented on our, you know, the enable ISO TMS registers on the process risk register, well, each process can be separated out into and PDF'd out of the spreadsheet. And that PDF can be made available in a shared drive or on a shared computer, even in a warehouse, for example, where necessary. So available at the point of use. I think adequately protected, well, the PDF, internal documentation accessed, you know, only by the workers who need to have access to it. So long as, you know, you've got appropriate levels of non-disclosure and so on, written into the contracts for employees, I think everything should be satisfactory there. With regard to confidential documents and so on, the whole area of access control from the statement of applicability will manage that area for you. So let's not kind of go to town too much where you've already got good security control in place of access to documents. Point B, or the 7532 rather, for the control of documented information, the organization shall address the following activities as applicable: distribution, access, retrieval, and use. Again, access control covers us handsomely in that regard. Storage and preservation, including preservation of legibility. It's kind of speaking to those days when we used to print things off. I hope you're not an organization that still prints things off. It's the 21st century, so get with it. You know, if you have to really, if you have to print something off, can you at least use recycled paper or something? But, you know, stop printing if you can. Distribution, access, retrieval, and use. Storage and preservation, including preservation of legibility. Control of changes, version control. We've spoken to that about the footer in the documents. Retention and disposition. All of that is considered through the internal audit program. So it's one of those things that you're probably already doing what's required, but going through the criteria hopefully will help you consider, well, are we? And if there are any gaps and you need a little bit of help, don't forget to call us and we'll help you straight away. It's straightforward. Let's look at the notes at the bottom. Documented information of external origin determined by the organization to be necessary for the planning and operation of the management system shall be identified as appropriate and be controlled. We work with a couple of shipping marine companies where they'd be moving a lot of stock in through ports, and so you've the whole area of customs and all of that stuff. But more importantly, you've also got stevedore, and I guess you know, it's appropriate and controlled, necessary for the planning. But you know, it's a pain when you have to use other people's documentation, and this is the point. Those companies will be having to book in berths for the ships, and they have to use the relevant port, whether it be Drogheda, Dublin, or Port Cork, or over in fines, you've got the Shannon estuary port. Well, all I'd say to you there is, you're probably accessing their website through a portal at this stage, hopefully, but there's at least one of them requires paper trails, and it's an absolute nightmare. And it's actually very old-fashioned way of looking at the world, but document control in that scenario is very, very, very important. I think other areas, of course, that need to be mentioned will be, like architects, engineers, and people who rely on highly specified or highly technical design through to development, through to building drawings and so on. Document control in those sectors, hugely important. So let me not take you to too high a level where you need to be very exact and very scrutinous. Documented information retained as evidence of conformity shall be protected from unintended alterations. PDF, most people won't have access to editing functions in PDF or in Adobe. I find it's a very useful tool for distribution of internal documents, particularly where you don't want to give people the ability to edit. Other than that, most systems, dashboards are available in systems. There's very little in the way of printing going on, and the integrity of the systems will be maintained through admin privileges and through third-party privileges. So I wouldn't be too concerned where you maintain your performance data and your evidence of compliance in a software application where that data cannot be interfered with by the users. Other than that, it's very hard to be specific to your sector without knowing a little bit about your business. So please get in touch if you need any help, and we can, work through how this can apply to your business to make it conform to the standards. Lastly, just that note at the end, access can imply a decision regarding the permission to view the documented information only, or the permission and authority to view and change the documented information. We were just speaking to that. I think just for those Enable ISO customers, what I would like to say is, the TMS system is pretty good at doing this. Where you want a spreadsheet, you could have a document register and so on. But the simple approach, if it's suitable for your organization, to keep it at a high level, using a car register to manage the changes and creating an updating section so you can keep track of the rationale behind changes and so on. That's the simplest tool that you can use for document control. There's no need for keeping a history in the document itself. It's ugly, so long as you can show that you control the documents through the car register. Other than that, don't want to keep it any longer. Get in touch if you need any help through the chat box on the website. Many thanks. Take care.